Hey everyone, today I want to explain why it's possible for me to believe that, on the one hand, the Golden Guardians are going to be my 10th power ranked team, most likely going into 2021. But on the other hand, I actually think they did the right thing this offseason by selling off the core of the roster that finished fourth in LCS in 2020. So I'm going to, talk through the thought process that brings me there. It might seem like those opinions can't really live in the same space in the same brain, but I think they can, and here's why. So when you're going to evaluate an LCS team and what their kind of goals are for a season, I think there really are there's a hierarchy of three goals you want to achieve, and the first two kind of go alongside each other. One is you want to win the LCS, and the other is you want to go to Worlds, so you don't have to win the LCS to go to Worlds, but of course those things go together. And then on top of all that, you want to win Worlds, which is like the ultimate peak goal for any organization. And even if you feel that might not be realistic right now, that is the goal you're working towards in the future. So when a team is building a roster in the offseason, whether they're working from scratch, whether they're working with some existing players and building around them, they have to self-assess against those goals. They have to say, do we believe that in the coming year, with the pieces we have and the budget we have and all these things, can we win LCS and go to Worlds this year? Can we win Worlds this year if you already are at that level and already achieving that? And if the answer is yes, then you say, what can we do to load up on top of our roster and build it to become even better than we were this year? And if the answer is no, we don't realistically believe that we have the resources in our organization, whether that's existing players, whether that's ability to sign new players, we don't believe that we are going to be able to win LCS and go to Worlds this year, then how do we set up that 12 months from now, next year, we can be in a position to try to do that? So, the approach on kind of option A there, if your answer is yes, that's kind of relatively easy. You just say, okay, what resources do we have? What are the best possible upgrades we can make that would push us into that phase where we think we are in a position to win LCS, go to Worlds? Golden Guardians, I think coming into this offseason, and they've kind of said already, they did feel they were going to be in that position. They had finished fourth in LCS. They had some budget. There were reports out there that they wanted to buy out Licorice from Cloud9, and that they had offered, I believe, $1.75 million to do so. And this was before they had been, due to COVID-related budget issues with their parent organization, it had come in and been told to them, no, we can't actually spend that much. This is my impression from the outside and from what I've seen reported. I don't know the exact details of how that all played out, but that's what I think happened. So they were looking at a situation where they wanted to bring in Licorice to upgrade their top lane and to give them something that they felt they didn't quite have, with Hauntzer becoming a free agent, whether they thought that was just going to be a similar budget and they could, do a little better than Hauntzer for similar budget, whether it's just, we think that's a position that since we actually have a free agency opening there, we're going to sign the absolute best player we can get, including paying a buyout. I don't know whether they would have also tried to make an upgrade at support since huhi was a free agent, whether they would have kind of paid the big raise he was probably looking for given the way his season went, or that they would have found another option that they thought could work out even better. But clearly they came into this offseason originally towards the end of the year thinking, we're going to load up this year, we're going to make a run, we're going to go to Worlds, and we're going to try to win LCS. But you do have to bear in mind when a team is trying to load up like that, they're competing against other orgs. They might have a different level of brand value to those orgs. They might have a different level of budget. So you're just going to do the best you can with those resources. And then in that case, you judge a team based on what did they achieve with their resources? Were they able to get the players they wanted? Did they actually upgrade? Are they actually kind of in that top three space to try to go to Worlds? If you answered your self-assessment, no, we don't think we can go to Worlds this year, we don't think we can win LCS this year, you're in a much more difficult position as an organization, because now you have to think, how are we going to position ourselves? Do we just hold on to this, try to, do we think, we're probably going to finish fifth, sixth, but if we do spend a little bit, we think maybe we can get to third. You're in a much more difficult position of how to actually achieve, no, we're going to pull back. We're going to aim for 12 months from now and set ourselves the best position we can be at that point. So to do that, you want to look at the players you have now, what you have in the organization, and say, how much better can these players be 12 months from now than they are today? And will we have control of their contracts? Do we have multi-year deals with these guys? Are they just going to go to free agency and then, we don't have anything except for the budget space that we were spending on them before? So you look at the contract length on your players in that case. You want to have players in your organization that you have multi-year deals with. And you also want to have players that you think will be better, will be more effective and more valuable players 12 months from now, and that are not already kind of delivering at the level you'd expect. So you kind of want to find some kind of hidden or potential value in that. So I think the strategy you can really try to take is you try to develop as many players as possible, those on multi-year deals especially. You want to then, over the course of the year or at the end of the year, hold on to the ones that worked out really well and either release or replace or do something along those lines with the players that aren't working out the way you hoped. And if things go really well, then you have kind of too many players in the organization that did work out, and you have the opportunity to sell them and increase your budget a little bit for next year. The worst thing you can do is kind of go halfway in between A and B, halfway in between loading up and trying to win now, or the second option of kind of resetting your organization, trying to develop players over the next 12 months and put yourself in a better position at the end of next year. So for Golden Guardians, in the case they were in, the in between A and B option they could do there is they could have held on to that core of 3 players. They could have held on to Closer, Damonte, and FBI. And then they could have, maybe signed in some players for top and support with high kind of development value, whether that's, a player they already had in academy, whether it's another young player they bring in they want to develop, whether it's somebody at amateur. So let's say that they took Niles, who's going to be starting for them in 2021, and added him to that core. And then also at the support position, they brought somebody else in. So going in between there, now potentially at the end of the year, those 3 core players might be filtering out of your organization at that point. You're already getting, I think, really good competitive value out of those 3 players, and they're not going to improve over the course of the year. And also, you're going to potentially just, spend a year off of their contracts if they already have, like say they have 2 more years in their contract, but you just used up one of those years. Or let's say they only have 1 year left in your contract, you're going to lose them completely. So Golden Guardians, I think the worst thing that they could have done is position themselves in between those 2 places. They could have held on to their core, added 2 more young players. That would not have set them up better 12 months from now than they were today, aside from the development time on those young players. What they could get a lot more value out of is if they sell those 3 players, or even if they only sold 2 of them, right, which might have been part of their plan, then they could have, by selling those players, they get money back for them, which increases their budget, not only for this year, but some of that money could roll over into 12 months from now in the budget for the 2022 season. They also have more slots in their roster to develop players with. They aren't kind of wasting those contract years in a season where they couldn't actually win right now. And so they're actually kind of getting a lot more value out of what's in the organization. And 12 months from now, what their hope is that all these players that they've either promoted or signed in new who are kind of underdeveloped and have a lot more opportunity to kind of explore their potential, they're hoping that enough of those players work out, they can hold on to some of them, sell the others, replace the others, and that for 2022, now that's the year where they can potentially spend some of that money they have and load up and win in that year. So they know going in that 2021 is a year they're not going to win a lot of games, most likely. But the measure of their success is going to be how many of the players in their LCS and academy slots actually pan out and develop enough to be, LCS winning quality for 2022, or are worth kind of selling off and making a profit on. And that's going to be judged on, how that's going to show how well they picked those 10 players, and it's going to show how well they coached and developed those 10 players throughout the year. And then they should also be judged on how their offseason goes 12 months from now, whether that offseason puts them in a better position to win than this offseason right now. And I think we could agree that this offseason right now has not put them in a position to win a whole lot of games in 2021, but that's not the point. So if they can have a more competitive roster start of 2022, and if they can have some players to sell, if they can have 2 or 3 players that worked out really well and add a couple more star veterans alongside them, like the Licorice buyout they were trying to go for, then that means this plan has worked out perfectly for them. And that opportunity to be in that position 12 months from now is worth a whole lot more than holding on to those 3 core players they had, loading up kind of a couple rookies around them and just hoping it works out in 12 months from now, probably losing a lot of it anyways, and also having spent a lot more to get there. The other thing that can be beneficial the way the Golden Guardians approach this offseason is they're the first kind of really hardcore player development focused roster I think that we've seen, the full traditional sports kind of rebuild, trust the process kind of thing that I think we've seen in the LCS. And that might actually win them some fans who want to invest in a future-oriented organization. If that wins them more fans than they lose by, not having those players that the fans had started to get used to in their team and that had won some games for them, it's possible that could work out and it's actually better for the long-term kind of fan base of their org. It might also work out the other way. It's hard to say. But that's going to be another angle that you can judge their offseason by next year. So to wrap all that up, I think that, it would have felt a lot better kind of emotionally and however else if Golden Guardians held on to that core and, were able. Obviously, it would have felt a lot better if they were able to kind of roll with the budget they thought they were going to have and load up and try to win this year. That was not the case for them. They made the choices they had to, given the constraints that were put on them. And if you want to get angry at team ownership for cutting back that budget and putting them in this position, I think it's completely justified to be angry about that, recognizing the context that they were in as an overall parent organization. But given all of that context, I think you have to look at what the Golden Guardians management did. The fact that they were able to self-assess and say, no, under the circumstances, we can't win LCS right now. Let's get the most we can out of the resources we have in our organization. Let's load up for 12 to 24 months from now, and let's see what kind of overall timeline and pathway we can build that sets us up to win LCS, not this year, but in the future. That's why I feel Golden Guardians actually did the right thing this offseason. That's why I think they made the right choices. And that's why I think we're really going to judge the success of this offseason by 12 months from now, not today. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of my take. If nobody ever disagreed with what I was saying, it wouldn't be worth putting out there. So I want to hear from you whether you like what I was saying, whether you think I got it wrong somewhere. Either way, let's have that conversation. Make sure you leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. It really does help the channel grow a lot, so I appreciate it.